Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the soccer scene, where we have a special podcast this evening. We're joined by freelance journalist John O'Shea. John joined us on a couple of occasions last year as well. He would cover both Cobh Ramblers and Cork City, who are both in the First Division, so he'll be a busy boy this year in terms of the First Division. John, thank you very much for joining us this evening to preview what is going to be a big game, obviously another Munster derby between Cobh Ramblers and Treaty United, the fourth meeting between the sides in the Airtricity League First Division, with Cobh probably desperate, I suppose, especially off the back of last week's defeat to Wexford, to beat Treaty and earn a first win against the Limerick side since they've arrived into the league.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a big year, first and foremost, for Cobh Ramblers, basically the 100th anniversary this year. So, I think it's kind of a thing. Obviously, they want to mark it in a big way, and obviously, I suppose a lot has been made, and I suppose it's very well highlighted the progress that the club have made off the pitch in the last couple of years. Even the recently getting, I think, a €300,000 grant as well, which I suppose in the Irish kind of sports funding, which was the big. I suppose you're not going to hand over that money. The Irish government aren't going to hand that over too easily. So I suppose it shows how well run the club is being run down in Cobh, and having things like collaborations with Burnley now as well. I think they sent 1 or 2 players from the under 15s over from Cobh over to Burnley for kind of assessments recently as well. So they're very well run in terms of that side of things off the pitch, and even for I know from kind of talking to Darren Murphy in advance of the season as well, that those standards he's trying to implement in terms of Cobh, so they can see that progress kind of matched on the pitch as well now over the coming season. So obviously it wasn't I suppose they would have liked that we would get after maybe a positive start to them on last week against Wexford, and obviously especially from winning. So they probably would have been slightly disappointed to end up losing the game in the end. So I suppose they'll be hoping to bounce back now on Friday night against Treaty and get their season, I suppose, properly up and running on the field.
I know I was disappointed myself, because I had predicted a draw in the predictions table from the Soccer Scene podcast that we run every week, and it looked like it was very close to happening until the penalty laid on, which would have been sickening for Cobh, considering, from reading comments from yourself and Darren Murphy after the game, should have been ahead by possibly further in the game. Then, you get pegged back in such disappointing fashion. Wexford were probably slight favourites going into it. And that is something I was going to ask you, John. What are maybe the expectations from Cobh? They had a really disappointing season last year, it must be said, considering a lot of people put them in that they'd be in playoff contention over the year before, and the achievement that didn't come to fruition. What would the expectations be? Because I know that even though you might not be happy to hear it, and Cobh people wouldn't be happy to hear it, that my analysts, Jason and Ola Connor and myself, all have Cobh to be in the bottom 2 and occupy the bottom 2 places. Are the expectations higher than that, or is there a sense of realism there due to the budget constraints, etc.?
The sense I get from even stuff I would have done with the Echo over the last, I suppose, in the previews of the season, talking to Darren and even some of the players as well. So they're kind of setting the bar a bit higher. I think they probably know maybe externally that not many people might see them finishing in a playoff position, but I think they definitely, the aspiration, they want to be competitive, and if they can get into those playoff places, they'd be absolutely delighted with that. I suppose if you're looking at Cobh in the general sense, I think looking at the squad this year on paper, it's probably stronger than it was maybe this time last year. But I suppose then the other side then is you're looking at other teams in the division look to be stronger now this year as well. Even look at Wexford, some of the recruitment they've made, and then you obviously the three full-time teams in there. Obviously the likes of Waterford and Cork City and Galway, and Treaty look to be in a decent enough position as well. And then obviously the likes of Longford coming down from the Premier Division, we looking to bounce back up. So it's obviously they have those aspirations to be up there, but it's obviously it's going to be a big task for Cobh if they were to end up in those places, because you just see they're up against maybe sides that maybe have bigger budgets, and then there are sides who are training full time as well. But I think you could see obviously the recruit in terms of the standards they are sitting down there, and it's also a testament to what Darren Murphy and the lads are doing, and getting the likes of Benyon or Brian Whitmarsh to come down. And I spoke to Benyon in advance of the season as well for an interview for the Echo, and he was kind of saying that from talking to the lads around the club, Darren and Conor Mead, another member of the coaching staff, that he just kind of felt that the club was a bit more maybe in terms of like things are being run a bit more professionally in terms of the standards they were set down there, and that kind of that would have tracked them down there. You could see that the standards are being set higher, and because you know what I mean, it could be easy for like the likes of Binion or some of the other guys have come down from Cork City, like Luke Desmond, Isa Carbo, Dale Holland. You know, there's other like I suppose there's a couple of other clubs in Munster that they could even go to in terms of League of Ireland football, or even though some guys would have got into Munster Senior League here in Cork as well, maybe like UCC or Corinthians or Ringmahon as well. So I think overall the expectation probably would be, I'd say externally maybe people might be expecting much of them, but I think definitely internally inside in the camp they'd be hoping to set the standard high and finish as high up the table as they possibly can.
Yeah, you mentioned the quartet of players actually there, John. You know, the likes of Dale Holland, Binion and Brian Whitmarsh that they've brought in from Cork. Younger players. Obviously, Darren Murphy is a young, ambitious manager as well. He came into a Cobh side totally devoid of confidence last year, no doubt about it. Me and you discussed on a regular occasion the fact that there was a lot of Limerick FC players at the time. And I found it incredible, really, that when Tommy Barrett made the admission recently that both Dave O'Leary and Darren Murphy had contacted him about returning to Limerick to play their football with Treaty United actually during the off-season, but they hadn't been retained at Cobh. It didn't seem to be a great season for either player. I know Ian Turner has retired as well. In one way, people might be surprised to hear you say that you feel the squad is stronger on paper because of the likes of those players have gone. But I suppose, you know, the table didn't lie last year and Cobh really didn't perform with those players in the squad. So this is a real fresh start from Darren Murphy, and you can tell it was a planned change to the squad.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, it's probably the things that they put in. Like, so even I think in terms of pre-season, I think they were kind of back doing kind of prehab stuff in the gym fairly early enough as well, like, in terms of their pre-season preparations. I think around the end of November, early December, actually. But yeah, I think it's just you know, and even the management, you could see that the things that they're kind of putting on, they might have the finances to do, but as best they can, they're trying to kind of set the standards high for the players, you know. And I think the coaching staff that Darren has there is he has a very good background team if you actually go through it. Like, you know, obviously assistant manager there is Fran Rocket, who's very well kind of regarded and respected down in Waterford circles. He was on the Waterford first team coaching staff, and even when Waterford were looking for a new manager for this season, even I remember seeing like Joe online and even message boards, forums or whatever. You know, Waterford fans, a couple of them, I saw his name kind of copied up a few times as well. So like he's very well regarded down there. And then on top of that, then you have Conor Mead, who would be a very good coach, and then he does like a one-to-one training. I think even with even like Jake O'Brien, who was a Crystal Palace under 23s, he's very good down in terms of Cork, in terms of the coaching side of things. And then John O'Flynn is also over there as well, I think, in terms of coaching the forwards. And I suppose like in his era, there's probably a few better in terms of finding the net than John O'Flynn, especially around 2005 at time of Cork City. And Derek Collins as well, who would be a very, you know, the winner for the FAI Cup. He scored the winner in 1998 for Cork City in 1998, and he had a great career in the League of Ireland, and obviously he won the league as well with Bohemians as well. So yeah, I think overall it's definitely going to be a case, I'd say, that, you know, I think they're just trying, and even as well, I think in terms of the training, I think they went towards the end of last season. Darren came in, I think that he tried to have them training an extra night a week. So I suppose there was the end of last year was maybe just assessing where they wanted to go with it, and then obviously he had he's after having a full pre-season to kind of put his own stamp on things and maybe recruit in terms of players he wants to bring into the club. And I think, you know, probably you could see maybe in terms of what they're trying to do, it's obviously being reciprocated by maybe getting the likes of those young guys coming from Cork City. And then obviously last week as well, which I suppose kind of took me a bit surprised. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Bringing in your mate Harlan Mboyo, a young centre back who obviously come in from, he used to play his spells in Scotland, obviously Aberdeen, Airdrie, and I think he was in Anderlecht's youth system as well. So yeah, so I think they're definitely trying to, and obviously it goes back to, again, you know, obviously on the pitch stuff or off the pitch, they've been incredibly well run, I suppose, in the last couple of years. I think they're just trying to match that on the pitch as well. But like obviously maybe in terms of this season, maybe, you know, it's going to be a big ask to do it. But, you know, definitely you could see if the way they're going, if they can match that progress on the pitch over the next couple of years, like there's no reason why they couldn't be kind of challenging for promotion and trying to get up into the Premier Division in the next 2 or 3 years, you know.
Yeah, there's always optimism in Cobh. There's always a lot of spice as well, it has to be said, John, between Limerick and Cobh in the past, and obviously Treaty and Cobh in terms of the overlap between, you know, players and maybe backroom members, like you mentioned, John and Flynn with Cobh. We obviously mentioned last season a couple of times Stephen Christopher, Charlie Fleming, now Martin Coughlin is also signed for Treaty. Obviously another big one would be Lee Devitt, who did make a lot of appearances for Cobh in his 2 years with the club. Do you think that we'll say Lee Devitt's time at the club had just maybe run its course, because he has made a big impact since he came back to Treaty? Tommy Barrett really trusts Lee Devitt. He's a really honest, hard-working player, a very versatile player. So I suppose were Cobh disappointed to lose Lee, or was it just a mutual parting of the ways?
Yeah, I suppose like it's probably maybe I suppose it's kind of mute. They probably, obviously in terms of the Treaty as well, it's probably more of a, I suppose like they probably know once that with a club was settled, maybe in Limerick as well, that Lee, obviously when we would have played there before as well, I suppose the net, and obviously working with Tommy Barrett, it would have been a natural kind of a fit for him to kind of go back there. But like I think over the time, I think definitely it would have been in kind of definitely a good kind of terms, parting of the ways, because when he was there, he probably was one of the most consistent, probably Cobh Ramblers players, definitely from over 2020 and 2021. And like he was, you know, I think when he came in, like 2020, he was a big kind of driving force behind them. You know, when they just missed out on the playoffs and on goal difference. I remember like it was the final night against Shamrock Rovers second team, and like, if they'd won that night, they would have made it into the playoffs. Actually, because given that
it turned out, with the Galway situation and the Cavantilli situation, yeah.
But like so you know, it's probably, and I think that they probably know in certain, like they give as much as they can, but obviously you can't step if opportunities come up, like even Charlie Lyons now this year as well, who would have been a regular presence centre back at the centre back position for Cobh in the last 2 or 3 seasons. But after Galway, the offer, I suppose, a full-time football kind of came up, and I suppose then like you can't step in someone's way, like if there's an offer to be a full-time footballer is being offered to them, like, so I suppose like I suppose the unfortunate maybe with the full-time part-time thing as well. But yeah, definitely Lee Devitt would be a player who's I think he'll get a warm welcome, I'd say, definitely in Cobh and Saturday night from the fans, I say. All right.
Yeah, one thing that surprised me actually, John, for the new season, which maybe wasn't a surprise to many others, was that Cobh have switched the night that they play their home games from Saturday to Friday for the whole campaign. That's that was a slight surprise in terms of, because Cork City playing on the same night. I suppose, you know, people outside of Cork and Cobh might be thinking, you know, your general armchair football fan that would probably choose Turner's Cross, you know, with all due respect to Cobh, to go and watch their football. But I noticed from reading an article that you had with Darren Murphy, he praised the atmosphere that was there on Friday, and it seemed to be quite positive about the change from Saturday to Friday. So is that the general consensus down there, is that it was a good move from the club?
Yeah, definitely. You know, looking like I was down there working last Friday night as well, and I was kind of thinking, what would the crowd be? I think there's 3 occasions this year when Cork City and Cobh are playing on the same night, and obviously Cork City, I suppose the John Caulfield derby, as people were calling it, was on Turner's Cross last Friday. But then, like, obviously going down to Cobh and St. Coleman's Park, like there was a very sizable crowd down there, and so it was the main kind of stand was nearly full, and you know there was a good atmosphere, and there was the first time I can recall for a couple of years as well, even there was a few supporters in terms of like generating a bit of an atmosphere, and even when Jack Larkin, the former Waterford underage player, scored the first goal, there was a couple of flares going off as well and stuff, which I can't
used to them this way as well.
You know, it was the first, I'd say the last time I saw flares down in Coleman's Park would have been 2016. Actually, I was down there that night when they played Drogheda United in the promotion playoff. So like, but then I suppose the Friday night thing as well, it just shows as well they still get that kind of a crowd, and you know they probably could have got even more if Cork City weren't even playing, because sometimes you would get people kind of Cork soccer followers, general people who might go to Cork City matches, that if they weren't clashing or if Cork City weren't playing, you get a couple even Cork would often go down to Coleman's Park as well. But like I think it shows as well that I suppose the goodwill that the clubs have in the community in Cobh as well, during the initiatives in terms of reaching out to what they're doing, that the support is strong for the club, and it's quite as strong that it has been looking from the outside looking in. In a good, it's as strong as it's been definitely since I've been covering the club anyway in the last couple of years. And I suppose from the Friday night perspective as well, maybe the fact being a part-time club for Cobh, like for player, maybe it kind of maybe suits the players in certain instances. You know, you have the game played the Friday night, so it kind of frees up the rest of the weekend for the players as well, and on that part-time basis. But I think also maybe the fact as well, though, I think a lot this year, the Friday Monday aspect of things. So having the game, so it probably just have the extra kind of recovery time. I think next week, even after the Treaty game, I think they're up to that loan on Monday night. So I think just I suppose having that extra 24 hours makes a big difference when you're having the Friday Monday kind of fixtures back to back.
Yeah, that is true, and it is going to be a hard slog with 32 games in the First Division, no doubt about it. I know that Treaty United have made serious inroads, I suppose, in the changes to the squad as well. You know, they've lost a few key players, it must be said. Ty Ryan, Sean McSweeney, the likes of those players were star performers. Anthony O'Donnell isn't there at the moment as well, who you'd obviously know from his time with Cobh. The likes of Enda Curran, Joe Gorman, Lee Devitt, like you mentioned, Jack Brady's come back in from Shelbourne. They had a brilliant win against Wexford on the opening night of the season. Now, that game, to be honest with you, could have ended 5-5 with the amount of chances Wexford created as well, and Tommy Barrett did highlight that. But it was very efficient from Treaty. Curran scored 2. That was something Treaty were missing last year, I suppose, is that kind of goal scorer. And similar, I suppose, to Cobh in some ways, missing that kind of regular goal scorer. Were you surprised to see Curran coming back, and what would be your expectations? Because I know he seems to be quite hungry now, and obviously it's a great start for him scoring 2 goals.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it was a big statement. You know, it was probably in one of those results that was raining goals in over the first weekend of the games, and like you know, I think, but obviously the likes of Curran, like in the Curran, it shows as well the ambition that Treaty have, and I suppose how well you could probably see how well Tommy Barrett was running things in Treaty last season. That, you know, and even like I suppose like Denzel Fernandez coming in as well, because I know even he was kind of saying that I suppose from talking to Tommy at the time, it kind of really convinced him to go down to Treaty, and I think inspected the fact as well that I think even Cobh and Cork City were possibly even looking to maybe inquire about him kind of coming. So it shows how well things are being run in that sense. And I suppose
both teams actually, John. Sorry for interrupting you, but I know both teams might feel it was, with all due respect, maybe a slightly lucky escape in some ways, in the fact that, you know, Denzel Fernandez's injury had actually been wrongly diagnosed at Shelbourne. He's actually going to be out for the whole season, effectively, for Treaty this season. It's a cruciate ligament injury that he picked up in Shelbourne, even though it was told it was only going to be a 6 or 7 week injury. So that was desperately disappointing for Treaty, I have to say, because of the quality of the player.
Yeah, no, actually, so that's the first actually heard in terms of that. That's kind of news to me. No,
yeah, it only was last week. It was announced, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so but I suppose even as you said, even in the general sense, this with the goal thing, the goal threat, I think, like, so that was definitely one of the standout results. I was thinking, like, though, even watching Treaty last year, like, they're capable of kind of getting results on their night against anyone in the division, but like that was a real kind of a state. Even I know, like, even with Wexford, and I saw that last week myself at the attacking threat, like even like Denny Corcoran as well. I think John kind of half surprised even a Premier Division club even mightn't have taken a punt on this year, but I think he'd be a good chance in terms of top score for the First Division. Denny Corcoran, what a bit of business by Wexford there, but so it was even whatever about Wexford on the night. I think to score 5 goals down in Ferry Carrig on the opening night was it kind of a good statement for Treaty, and you know, I suppose like they're probably determined as well, I would imagine, to show that last year wasn't the one off, and like you know, they got a taste for last year, and they want to kind of have taste more of it now this year as well.
And as we said, Cobh will be desperate to beat Treaty, considering, you know, I suppose it came close on a couple of occasions after they were beaten 3-0 in the last meeting between the sides in September, but earlier in the season, a 1-1 draw at the Markets Field. They will be desperate to do so. If you were to put your prediction hat on, John, who do you think will come out on top on Friday night?
Like, I think definitely there's a couple of things, you know, I think there was elements from Cobh's play that I thought, like, you know, there were signs definitely to be encouraged by in terms of the attacking kind of threat that they have in the side. So the likes of Dale Holland, even Jack Larkin as well, who was an old Waterford underage player. He did well, and he got the kind of the man of the match from Cork's 96 FM as well. So there was aspects, they were good there, but and going forward. But then I suppose there are things they probably need to work on, and I suppose even in terms of game management, from being 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go, and then I suppose to go from that position to a losing position was probably disappointing in that sense. But it's going to be, I'd say it's going to be another competitive game, and I suppose sometimes derbies can kind of often take on a life of their own as well. So I think it'd be a close one. It's probably I'm probably going to maybe be my thing of staying on defence, but I'd say it's probably going to be a draw at the call now, probably on Friday night.
I know Aidan Delaney of Wexford also called it a draw, and Treaty came out on top. So I'm hoping it's the same personally, obviously for Friday. But obviously, John, we're delighted that you joined us this evening. And don't be surprised if you get the call from me on another and ignore it on another couple of occasions, obviously with the likes of Cork City coming up for Treaty too. So thanks very much for joining us.